we very much believe in the platforms need to compensate for that IP if they're going to use it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Make That Make Sense, the game show that dissects the latest news at the intersection of digital media and money. So who is our guest? So we're going to have Ryan Pauley on the show today. Ryan is the president of revenue and growth at Vox Media. Prior to this role, Ryan served as Vox Media's chief revenue officer from 2018 to 2023. Among the things that Ryan has done at Vox, he oversaw the launch of Vox Media's ad tech marketplace Concert and has helped build Vox Media's podcast network into one of the biggest podcast networks in the world. Ryan got his BA from Elon and then his master's from Georgetown. All right, let's get him on. Hey, Ryan, thanks for coming on Make That Make Sense.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric.
I'm going to spring this on you now, even though we talked a little bit before the call, but I actually went to Elon my freshman year of college. I know you're an Elon undergrad, so wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then you went to USC after your freshman year?
And then I went to USC.
Nice. Not a bad move to LA.
Both places are great.
Yeah.
All right, should we get into the rules?
Let's do it.
All right, so just a quick rundown on how this works. On Make That Make Sense, we go through one headline, one tweet, and one deal in 15 minutes. Each section, meaning the headline, deal, and tweet, will last 3.5 minutes. You'll then have 1 minute to answer each trivia question, and all topics are from the last 10 days, so everything is very recent in the industry. So Spotify made waves this past week, announcing a lot of additional tools for podcasters to dive into video, but also new monetization options. I want to ask you, how is this going to affect the way you work with the talent and the shows under Vox Media's podcast network?
Absolutely. So we Vox Media was quite early to the podcast boom. We launched our podcast network about 8 years ago or so, and we've had a ton of success with great shows and building an audience. We're the largest podcast network that's not an existing platform out there today, and we've got great shows like Pivot with Kara Swisher, Scott Galloway, and Where Should We Begin with Esther Perel, and A Touch More with Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird. And so we have giant names, big talent, a range of topics, and over the past, I would say year, say 18 months or so, have spent a lot of time and energy and resources in expanding from a audio product to a talent and show based product. And so many of our shows exist in audio form, in video form on YouTube, clips on TikTok and Instagram. We're doing more live pod events and activations and things like that. And so I think what you're seeing is the authenticity that comes with a podcast that a host has with its audience, and you're in somebody's ears for 30, 60 minutes every week, at least. And advertisers are tapping into that influence. I think there's still actually like an attention arbitrage opportunity where the market is still not caught up to like how much time and engagement is actually going into podcasts. And you sort of can see that with the, what's been dubbed the podcast election and its influence on the sort of election results. And so you can sort of see that. And so it's pretty natural, I would say, for these talent and shows to start expanding into other media. And so Spotify announcing they've sort of started prioritizing video decent amount over the last year plus, but you can kind of see this expansion, and it certainly goes head to head with their combat with YouTube pretty directly. And YouTube has become, I think in the Wall Street Journal this week, it was sort of noted that YouTube has become the largest source of audience for podcasts already at sort of 30-ish%. And so Spotify sort of wants to tap into that. I would say their business is different, and their YouTube business is pretty different than ours from a creator standpoint. And they are trying to maximize like scale and become the default platform for consumption, and they will monetize that scale and the data that goes along with that scale. Whereas I think kind of commoditizes a little bit of the opportunity in talent and podcasts, which is like tapping into that authenticity and getting the host to sort of be a part of the advertising and make the creativity really strong. So sort of interesting to see sort of how it plays out.
Super interesting, and I know you guys will be at the forefront of it, so you're a good person to ask about that. Should we move on to our tweet?
Sure thing.
All right, so this is a question I think would be great specifically for you, given that you were the chief revenue officer, so you look at this type of stuff every day. Back in October, X switched from their ad revenue sharing model to the creator revenue sharing model. I think at the time, at least from my perspective, it made some sense given that you saw advertisers really fleeing the platform. But now that Trump won, we're actually seeing a lot of these same advertisers coming back to the platform. So do you agree with this sentiment that we could now see X go to a hybrid between ad revenue sharing and creator revenue sharing?
I suspect that they will still lead on the creator revenue sharing only because they've sort of prioritized that from a like strategic standpoint. I have some reservations, I think, about the like flee back to X from an advertising platform, only because the reason that the most largely stated reason that many brands walked away from advertising on X was the brand safety concerns. And I think there has been nothing done to assuage those concerns. Like there have been no real technical developments. There have been no like real strategic advances in that respect. And so I think what the platform, it has a ton of engagement. I am like spend way too much time on X still. And so there's a lot of engagement, but it's still not a very robust or healthy advertising platform, I would say, certainly relative to the other social platforms. But there's a place for X and a place for sort of creators to develop communities and engagement on that platform. But I suspect that they've, the infamous owner has like pretty plainly stated his sort of disdain, lack of respect for legacy media or traditional media, however you want to refer to it. And I don't see them really like backing off the sort of push on creators to this point.
And you bring up brand safety as really the number one reason why advertisers were fleeing. Another big headline that we could have covered this week is the growth in users for Blue Sky, this kind of new, I guess you could say, competitor to X. From an advertisement perspective, what potential do you see from that platform as kind of an alternative to X?
Yeah, I think what Blue Sky, in my opinion, still needs to kind of like figure out what its identity is from a platform standpoint. Like a couple years ago, it was when Threads launched, and that was the original alternative to X/Twitter, and Threads has kind of developed its own identity, which is a little less like real, maybe a little safer, a little more I don't know, just less on the culture and certainly a lot less real time, but has a platform with a ton of users that spend a ton of time on it, thanks to Facebook's sort of power. So so Threads has its own identity. Blue Sky I still think needs to figure out what its identity is going to be. And then what the best part about the business model with the platform standpoint is if you can have a revenue model that directly mirrors the engagement that you want and experience you want your audience to have. That's the beauty of Instagram, is like the advertising product is like exactly in line with what the non-advertising product is, and they've done a great job making that a really valuable advertising platform. So, but Blue Sky still needs to figure out what its like identity is from a community standpoint.
Very interesting. All right, should we go to our deal?
Let's do it.
All right, so I should first note that you guys at Vox made a very similar deal with OpenAI back in May. From somebody who sees AI almost taking over everything, from a general market perspective, are these licensing partnerships between AI companies and media companies going to become ubiquitous going forward, or is it more of on a situation basis?
I think we was a very valuable and strong IP owner and holder. We very much believe in the platforms need to compensate for that IP if they're going to use it for training or display. And OpenAI, at least so far, has shown a level of interest in doing that. The biggest platforms, though, are at various stages of their development in terms of valuing IP ownership at all, or to whatever degree that they are sort of coming to. And so they are, I think, ultimately our expectation and certainly our belief is that over time all of the major LLMs will compensate IP owners for the rights to the content. If and when that happens is still very much up in the air. They are at various maturities of sort of going through that process on their own. But I will say that when it comes to AI, I'm a user of many of the newest AI tools and platforms as well for experimentation and for productivity and what have you. But I think there is very much there's a lot of interest in the AI tools being used to disintermediate various like technology platforms, whether it's disintermediate search, the existing search platform, or other content platforms. But I do think what they are missing is a little bit of like personality and tone, and that's where the creativity of like original reporting and what brand value has to consumers is missing. And the intention of the math behind the models is to give you like an average answer of everything based on the query that you asked. And like there are certain things that average answer is fine for, but there's way more things where you want the exact opposite of the average answer. Like you want an answer from someone you trust or from a brand you trust, or you want the best of the thing or the worst of the thing or whatever it might be. And so average is actually like not, in our view, not what like most consumers want for most questions. Like take shopping online as an example. Like shopping online is like, in my view, like very fundamentally broken. If you like search for anything on Amazon and the sponsored listings you get, it's like impossible to discern to get to something that like is any good. And same goes on Google. And so there's something very different with like clicking on a sponsored listing in Amazon versus coming to The Strategist, which is our commerce brand, which is like fundamentally grounded in curation and like the best products for whatever you're looking for based on people who have like tested and used the various options. And if you come to The Strategist and Loyal Strategist, like you trust the recommendation. And so that is where some of the optimism around AI and where but the platforms are like right now, I think lagging a little behind in sort of elevating some of that work.
It'll be a fascinating integration to see over the next couple of years. It's something that I think there will be a lot of opportunity in it, I would say. And I'm sure you guys will be
definitely
at the forefront of it. All right, so we've gotten past our first couple of things. It's now time for trivia. I have a feeling you're going to be pretty good at it, but we'll test your skills. You ready?
I'm ready.
First one is a Guess That company. So it was co-founded by a former Morning Brew employee. It has a unique referral program that allows creators to cross-promote. and it made a big investment into helping independent journalists.
I don't know. One of them's tripping me up. Is it Beehive?
You pulled it out of there. There we go.
There we go. I don't recall the connection to the former Morning Brew founder, but so that's what was tripping me up.
All right, this one's a 2 truths and a lie. You tell me which one is a lie. Michael Bloomberg initially funded Bloomberg with a $10 million severance check. Bloomberg LP expanded into the media industry by launching Bloomberg Business Week as its flagship magazine in 2002. And Bloomberg's iconic terminals were originally designed to deliver real-time bond prices.
The lie is, I feel like that timing for Business Week is about right. $10 million severance check, that anecdote rings a bell. I don't know if that's the right amount, though. Let's go with number 1 is a lie.
Okay. Unfortunately, we were not as lucky
no.
on this one. In fact, interestingly enough, Bloomberg LP bought this Business Week magazine in 2009, which it renamed, but that magazine had been on since 1929. So a little bit of a confusing one to trip you up, but
there you go.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. Well, really appreciate you coming on. I know it's kind of an interesting format to go over, the weekend news, but hope you enjoyed it and excited to follow everything that's going on at Vox.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This is great format and a unique show that you got. So congrats. I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Ryan.